I think we'll just jump into the new order updates. Che or Eden?
Sure. So I'll kick it off. A good place to start is actually just acknowledging that New Order has been in existence, has been operating for 3 quarters now, and we set out in December with the goal of being a platform that can scale and launch 20 to 30 projects a year, at least to start out with. I think what's really exciting is that in about 2 or 3 weeks from now, we'll have the next Basecamp program starting. We will be at about 20 projects in terms of projects that I would say have taken an active role in launching, either through strategic incubation or through the Basecamp program. And so we've got, I think what's exciting, of course, is Y2K, and we've just announced the proposal for IVX. And there's a few other things that are sort of looks like they're developing in terms of like opportunities that we think we can act on. But between the strategic incubation that we're doing and the accelerator program, as of October, I think we should be at 20 projects, which I think is a big deal. The market is obviously crap, but this is a time to build. I think we are kind of letting our work do the talking. And certainly by December, when it will have been a year, I think that we'll have a lot of projects and a lot to point to in terms of what value we're creating and which projects in our treasury will be part of that next sort of crypto super cycle, right? So certainly, I mean, obviously, like we've always been very, very bullish on redacted, but I mean, there's probably a few other things in there that I think have like some real exponential potential. So I think, just pointing that out, I think is something that's like definitely, worth sort of recognizing that we will be at about 20 projects once we announce I think 8 or 9 projects that are coming out of the next Basecamp in a few weeks. So with that said, I think it's also worth mentioning that given the market and given sort of how DeFi has been performing, there's also this sort of ongoing, you could say, expansion of our thesis and our brand. And I think more and more as I think we are prepared for a very protracted bear market, in which we might not even be halfway through, right? Like it might be 2024 where the next bull cycle or things start to look better for a variety of reasons. We have been examining how we want to position effectively our treasury, right, to represent like the next, like, hopefully what's going to be like a super cycle, right? And so there is a lot of, I think, recognition that we really should expand our thesis beyond DeFi into NFTs, into infrastructure, into, I think, just like community-led marketplaces. And so I think what you'll see more and more of is projects that will represent those opportunities. And if you kind of do some reverse engineering, and you see like the thesis of a lot of these large funds that have raised, they have largely been on NFTs. It has largely been on this idea of consumer-based applications, real-world applications, crossing the chasm, so to speak, right? And that's stuff that we're going to be looking at more closely. Likewise, there's tends to be an ongoing interest in infrastructure. And so, we are positioning the team and our resources and our networks and our research, and directing it towards like kind of a larger expanded thesis. That doesn't mean that we are moving away from DeFi. It just means that we're sort of DeFi plus, right? We're looking at we're DeFi is a strength of ours, but we're also looking at other things that have a lot of potential. And then also likewise, venture tends to follow the power rule, and I think what you'll see is more and more ambitious projects that we will be looking for, that we'll be focusing on, working on. I think as an example, I mean, it's simple math, right? I mean, if we can launch like a multi-billion-dollar network, that it makes a dramatic impact for our treasury, and bear markets are a great time to build, and we want to make sure that we're diversified and that we are taking aim at opportunities that are going to help us follow the power law. So that's just some background on kind of like where we're at, like some of the thinking that we've been doing in terms of where we think we should go, and given where we think we should be going given the market. And then, I think also it's probably worth noting that, I think our brand is also going to evolve, to sort of represent and recognize these sort of greater opportunities beyond DeFi. So, I mean, I think be on the lookout for that. I think some interesting stuff's going to be happening with regards to our brand and our community as well. So that's just a large backdrop, sort of a high level backdrop on New Order. I'll get into some specifics around Basecamp, and then there's some updates on IVX, Y2K, Redacted, the internally incubated projects. We could have the team update there, but just to give you a little bit of flavor on the upcoming Basecamp, we had 180 applications, the quality of which was actually, I think, notably higher than the 300 plus applications that we had for the first program. And so right now, the projects, I can't name them by the project names, but like I could give you a description of them, and I can't do that because the deals have not been complete yet. But I'll just rattle off a few of the projects. We've got one project that's focused on impermanent loss protection. Another project that is like sort of the Zillow of the metaverse. It's like this interactive map where you could go out and actually look at land to purchase and do a variety of assessments. It's another project that's crypto asset structured product that focuses on-chain options trading. We've got another project that's an on-chain OTC derivative trading and clearing platform where the users can create and execute their automated and complex strategies. It's mainly focused on financial institutions. And then there's a variety, a few others that are sort of like, that are being assessed, sort of like final stages of kind of like narrowing down this cohort. So, but I think what's exciting is that, we're looking at, somewhere in the order of 8 to 10 projects in this cohort, and the quality is actually I think something that we're very, very excited about. So with that said, I will hand it off to the rest of the team to kind of update on some of the internally incubated projects. I think probably the one that everybody's maybe most interested in at the moment is IVX, because it's new, but of course Y2K is just around the corner to be launched. So Mitch, let's hand it off to you, and you could give an update on IVX.
Yeah, sounds good. So, just for those that don't know, IVX is an on-chain options AMM that is built using GMX. So, I mean, the AMM operates similar to traditional AMMs. that you all have, interacted with. However, main difference is that, instead of using liquidity pools, it uses what's called like market maker vaults, where, anyone can deposit in these vaults similar to a liquidity pool. However, there's external like keeper bots, right, that fill the orders and then also hedges away any net delta exposure using GMX perpetuals. So a real exciting part of this is that, partnership and integration with GMX. And there's a lot of, kind of fun things we can do off of that that we're planning out in future versions. So stay tuned for that. In terms of progression right now, we're working diligently on finishing up the smart contracts, just making tweaks to those and getting them to audit soon. There's already been, an article release that kind of describes at a high level what IVX is, but the actual like formal documentation in a Git book will be released soon. So then you can all get a deeper look at exactly kind of, what the project is and the technical details with it, right? And some other additional things that we're finishing up and working on are, finalizing the front end design, getting more content pieces out so that a lot of the information surrounding the project is more digestible, and just so like you guys, the community gets a better understanding of the project. So that's what we have going on right now. I think, just in general, in the roadmap we've laid out for ourselves, with the various partnerships we have, as well as, the technical capabilities of the team, that's working on this project and leading it. There's a lot of exciting stuff that will be integrated and introduced, beyond just, the base on-chain options AMM. So stay tuned for more information about that.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, if anybody has any questions, definitely feel free to drop them in the channel. Cool. So let's move on
Maybe
to
also,
Y2K.
I think like it's good to link to Twitter and stuff for those who are just on Discord, not on Twitter. Maybe Contento, you can just drop like the Twitter link in the chat.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. So Jay, Y2K coming up. Why don't you give us an update on what's around the corner?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think what Y2K has been chugging along like really well. We're going through our like third round of audits at this point, just to make sure like the code is like super stress tested. And the most recent audit actually was with Code Arena, when all of the issues were pretty much like old gas optimization. So we want to just make sure we knock those out of the way, and then in about, I would say, I don't want to give like concrete dates, of course, but very soon, I think in the next month, we can expect Y2K to be live and ready for you guys to try out. I think on a general scale, right, like the PMF for such a product is just very apparent, and it's been apparent like since the Luna crash. And even after the Luna crash, it kind of introduces a lot of interesting dynamics with creating vaults surrounding, a lot of people are still in the camp of expecting a repeg or a particular pump in the price that goes to the level that should be prescribed, right, based of like on-chain analytics, and everybody's like kind of looking at this as an opportunity to reignite the fire and then see the ecosystem come out of the ruins and come back to light. And we want to make sure that we provide a market for that to be able to, the market for it in general isn't just developed, right? There's no way for you to participate in what really happens in the USD and then Terra ecosystem at this point, if you're not on a centralized exchange. And we want to make sure that we provide that and fill that gap in the market for a lot of the people out there. And I would say in general, token derivatives and like assets and pegged assets, whether those are stable coins or not, right? I think the spectrum is quite wide, and especially with a lot of the liquid staking derivatives, I would say particularly in the ETH ecosystem, but there's a lot of them coming up. We would like to provide a market for people to hedge their exposures to those liquid staking derivatives or LSDs. And in general, I think there's just a really apparent product market fit, and we're very excited for this to come out in the following couple of weeks. So I think I covered most of it. Of course, if you guys are keen on learning more, there's Discord, there's a Twitter consent, so make sure to pin it. But I think you guys are quite aware of it at this point.
Cool. Thanks, Jay. So yeah, obviously very excited about Y2K. So there's always a ton of cool stuff happening with Redacted. So Sammy, yeah, what's the latest?
Yeah, on the redacted front, last community call we shared that we put out like the V2. Right now the butterfly lockers are earning between 6 to 8% APY and ETH, which we're pretty happy with. Considering like we just launched it and a lot of these things are still pretty new. Also on the GMX front, we announced we're doing PX GMX, like PXCVX, but for the GLP. And yeah, put out a few new hidden hand markets like Saddle and Idle, and continue to expand onto Arbitrum and Optimism with some new markets there too. So, the usual developments with Redacted, just shipping away, trying to plant our flag in as many places as possible.
Cool. Okay, so let's move to Chris and Frogs, which is like sort of our open public research hub. Chris, what's happening there?
Yeah, Frogs made some leaps and bounds in September. There's two sides to that. I'll tell you about both of them. On the numbers front, our Twitter surpassed 1,000 followers, which I think that's kind of the number you need to be beyond to be in the game. On top of that, we had 2 commissioned threads from different projects around DeFi. We had one for Trader Joe, one for Liquidity. Those pushed us to higher numbers than we've seen on Frogs before. The Trader Joe, we did a thread about their AMM that they asked us to do, and had about, just shy of 15,000 impressions on Twitter. The Liquidity thread that we did had about 26,000. So those are really good numbers. A traditional media company, what you're going to do is you're going to build an audience, create content, and then sell ad space to people. What people are going to look for when they're deciding who they want to buy ads from is going to be numbers of the impressions you have on Twitter. So those are important thresholds for us to have crossed. Some of you may remember last month on the community call, I had talked about us seeking out additional or secondary revenue streams. We've kind of, behind closed doors, we've been referring to that as the Frogs Pro team. We started this process of pulling together a number of people who are just very, very talented and capable writers of technical and professional writing. Some of whom are amongst you in the audience right now. So we pulled together the Frogs Pro team, and we have a secondary revenue stream coming together now, both in terms of sponsored content and in terms of quarterly reports that we're writing for other protocols. So at the moment, we've just about completed the research on a quarterly report for Synthetics. We're doing a quarterly report for Trader Joe, and there's a third project that we are kind of finalizing negotiations because they're actually interested in prepaying for a year's worth of quarterly reports. We haven't finalized that yet, so I'm not going to say who it is, but definitely to be in this stage of negotiating like an annual payment plan for work that we're doing. That's a huge step forward for Frogs. I'm excited about that. And we also have 2 projects that we're in talks with about sponsored pieces. So that's where we are. Frogs is in a good place, and I think once we get past this stage of establishing ourselves as people who are very serious, like a very serious team doing commissioned research for people, we can start to expand probably next month into doing more, maybe more retail focused, more entertaining things, more, writing that I think people are going to enjoy reading more. So that's where we're at.
Cool. And I think Frogs will also I think is examining the potential of moving beyond DeFi as well, into NFTs. And so that could be really, really interesting as New Order evolves. So yeah, I mean we're I think always like super, super supportive of like having this sort of grassroots um Bleacher Report for DeFi, crypto, maybe NFTs research, as Sammy puts it. So cool. So Che was in New York last week, talking to all sorts of people, along with Mike on our team. And Che, you've got some updates just on sort of the venture landscape. You want to fill everybody in?
Yeah. I would say, generally speaking, at this point in time, in this point in the market, a lot of the funds out there and angels are coming back to the fat protocol thesis and trying to be as grassroots as possible in the blockchain infrastructure layer. The closer you are to the consensus and the actual layers, the modular layers of the blockchain, the more value you're accruing rather than building on top of it on the application and like the dApp layer of sorts, right? Also, in addition to that, there's very large funds that have been raising over the bull market that are looking to deploy, and they have obligations to deploy. And when you have a fund that is obligated to deploy $10 million a quarter, and everybody's raising a $25 million valuation, it's very difficult for them to continue with the obligations of deploying, and they have to look for these very large ticket items, which are usually layer ones, right, or infra layers. And so we can see the likes of Aptos and Sui and even say really shine in these times where they're raising these vast ecosystem funds for development. And funny enough, a lot of those ecosystems are already saturated because when you weight the dollar, right, I think a lot of developers chime in considering the just lack of capital and liquidity in the ecosystem at this point in time. So I think that was one of the biggest directional theses that I've noticed. Also, generally speaking, I think the liquidity flows in DeFi are drying up from the retail side of things, and the biggest reasons why a lot of the institutional, or let's not call them like non-crypto native, right, but like crypto native institutions, a lot of them are on the sidelines and they're just waiting the right moment to come in. And some of the issues that they foresee is obviously the regulatory concern issues. Like there's a lot of stablecoin conversations happening in the past month or so, which I don't think are a surprise to anyone, but it's just a reassurance of the eye of the regulator on these side of topics. But also, I think what is something that we would like to bridge and we would like to look into is the capital inefficiency in the DeFi market in general, and finding ways of bridging that gap and ensuring that the only uncertainty from the standpoint of an investor is really the regulatory concern, which honestly we are incapable of affecting, considering we are in no capacity lobbyists, right? But we want to make sure that the directions that we are able to control and we're able to build towards and really sculpt our value proposition is really that second point, which is that capital inefficiency issue. And we have a lot of ideas in mind of how to bridge that gap, and we're currently working behind the scenes in a lot of very like grassroots mechanics, right? That I think are very novel and do solve a lot of the issues that we can control, right? As I said, and we want to make sure that we really focus on those instead of trying to capture all of the issues in DeFi and tackling them all by a little bit and really solving none of them, right? So that's a little rant from my end based on my experiences in New York and what we have been pivoting into based off our conversations with a lot of the guys out there.
Cool. And we do have Mike in Singapore. as everybody's sort of gathering there this week. So there should be some more intelligence and interesting conversations that come out of that. So, we'll obviously be integrating it into like new order strategy and benefiting from that. So I think that's pretty much the update for this month.
There's also the Basecamp stuff I can go over.
I went through a bunch of it. Is there anything else you wanted to cover?
Amber wants to go over like a bunch of things actually.
Oh, okay.
Well, now
Yeah.
like you mostly went over like cohort 1. So just like some updates then on cohort 2 before we wrapped up. We received over 180 applications. Nice round number.
I think we covered this.
Okay. I was just gonna go over the venture projects, but it's okay.
No. I think Eden got to it already, so we're good. We're good.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, I covered a bunch of that in my long ramble. So, so yeah, I think tons of like I think cool stuff coming out soon now, right? So Y2K, IVX, next base camp, and I think we should probably be on the lookout for a few other announcements as well that we're working towards. And so, again, like I said, as of next month, once the cohort 2 of Basecamp is established, we'll be at 20 projects, which I think is, significant in terms of, like I said, establishing our venture platform. And we're 9 months in, and the bear market, there's no end in sight. So I think the more we continue to just build and build and build and just be dedicated to kind of creating, the next cycle of crypto and being a big major part of it, right? We're going to be in a good place. So if anybody's got any questions, feel free to send them our way. Obviously, if you're looking for ways to participate, reach out to Contentu, and we all want to be building together. So definitely reach out.
I
Yeah,
think
so-
the only thing I haven't covered actually is the Treasury. And we've been very happily sitting in a delta neutral position on GMX for the past little over a month, I should say, maybe a little less, maybe around there. And we've been hedging on synthetics, our exposure in the underlying BTC and ETH positions on the GLP. And it's been, I would say, yielding around like over 20% for sure, and maybe 22, 23% purely in ETH. Which we have a cadence of then selling for stables every 10 days or every 2 weeks, depending on the market and the rebalancing frequency. And it does seem like that particular strategy is the best source of risk-adjusted yield in the market currently. Of course, there's a lot of lending opportunities and borrowing opportunities and various leverage strategies that could be taken, but none of them really yield as much as the position that GMX does with the same, I would say, like risk spectrum. So for the foreseeable future, we're going to be in that position. And our only input cost really is the funding rate that we're paying for the hedge, which is kind of going all over the place with the market conditions. It was long for a long time, and then everybody kind of got wrecked in that, and now it's short. So we'll see what happens really in the market. But since we've built delta neutral, the yield that we receive from the from market making really counteracts any sort of funding rate that we're paying. So it's been going really well, and we're quite substantially extending our runway, and I'm sure that is very helpful for the long term of our incubation activities here as well.
Yeah, so Che, Gigabrain, go. Amazing updates. I think we'll close out here. As Eden mentioned, team's going to be hanging around. If you have any questions after the call, feel free to, ping me, ping whoever. And there's one more thing that I do want to mention. Look out for the next episode of Alpha Drop. It's going to be a good one. And yeah, if you want to apply to the sub DAOs, please go to New Order Academy. I'll drop the command in CC questions. And maybe I'll even post a walkthrough as to how to apply. And yeah, thanks everyone for coming out. Really appreciate it.